Welcome back to another explainer, folks. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating piece by Oluyomi Oladavid called The Economics of Valentine. Now, usually, right, when February rolls around, our brains instantly default to romance, poetry, grand gestures, the whole shebang. But Oladavid, she takes a totally different, incredibly eye-opening approach. She's actually analyzing this holiday purely through an economic lens. Okay, let's jump right into this, because I promise you, by the end of this explainer, you're going to be looking at those heart-shaped boxes of chocolate in a completely different way.
So here's the massive question we need to kick things off with. Is Valentine's Day actually a celebration of love, or is it just a masterclass in behavioral economics? It's a pretty wild question to ask yourself, isn't it? She suggests that what we all think of as this deeply personal, highly emotional holiday is, in reality, a massive, highly orchestrated economic event. Instead of just getting swept up in the feelings, she's urging us to literally follow the money. Are we really acting out of pure, unadulterated romance, or are we just predictably responding to seasonal market forces?
All right, let's get into Section 1, the business of romance. Oladavid points out something absolutely crucial here. Valentine's Day doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Economically speaking, it operates as a major peak business, sales, and shopping season, strategically dropped right after the Yuletide holidays have wrapped up. Like, just when retail sales are supposed to dip, boom, the market artificially creates a brand new peak. And we see this massive avalanche of inventory being pushed. We've got all the usual suspects, right? Cakes and chocolate bars, candies, wines, giant teddy bears, red roses, fancy dinner tables, cinema tickets. But wait, pay attention to how she ends that list. Lies and half-truths. Wow. What she's brilliantly illustrating here is how businesses peddle all these goods to appeal to our rational appetite for more, while at the exact same time, they're laser targeting what she calls the childish section of the human brain. We're literally being sold a fantasy, and honestly, we are buying it in bulk.
Which brings us to Section 2, irrational consumer behavior.
The social pressure around this season is intense. It acts like an invisible pressure cooker, and it drives some incredibly irrational choices. We suddenly get this desperate urge to keep up with the Joneses, which fundamentally alters how we spend our hard-earned money. And she notes two extreme behaviors that totally take over right before the holiday. On one hand, we've got the gullible and naive. These are the folks just completely giving into the hype, making wildly impulsive buying decisions just to prove their affection or, fit in with societal expectations. But then on the flip side, and I'm going to say her observation here is so sharp and honestly kind of hilarious, we have the stingy and broke. She points out that some people will actually intentionally pick a serious, nagging fight right before the 14th. Why? It's a strategic ploy to completely dodge the financial tax of gift buying. Seriously, it just goes to show the crazy lengths people will go to in trying to manage financial expectations during this totally manufactured peak season.
Now let's look at Section 3, the hidden societal costs.
Okay, here is where Oladavid really shifts the tone. She zooms out from all these quirky individual consumer antics and looks at the much darker, unintended societal consequences of this massive behavioral surge. She details some very severe public health risks, noting that the Valentine bug may freely distribute, and this is heavy, oral infections, STDs, unplanned pregnancies, and needless abortion kits among uninitiated youth. When you throw together massive marketing budgets, intense societal pressure, and seasonal adrenaline bursts, she argues it yields a huge spike in what economists actually call unwanted bads. So this irrationality doesn't just empty out our wallets, it creates very real, very dangerous health outcomes. And crucially, these aren't just abstract statistics to her. She grounds these societal risks in a deeply poignant personal anecdote. She writes, "The global economy lost one sweet and budding solutions generator to a needless casualty." She shares that every single Valentine's season reminds her of a precious high school mate who actually passed away from complications of an abortion. By framing a devastating human tragedy as a loss of a solutions generator to the global economy, she powerfully merges the emotional devastation of the holiday's excesses with her stark economic framework. It's a real gut punch.
Moving on to Section 4, macroeconomics and sugar taxes.
Zooming out even further now, she wants us to see how these seasonal micro-behaviors, buying the chocolates, acting on impulse, how they ripple out to affect massive macroeconomic metrics and even dictate concrete government policy. So let's balance the ledger exactly like she does. On the benefit side, sure, this season brings a massive spurt in productivity. There's a sky-high trade volume in fast-moving consumer goods, FMCGs, which directly pumps up national output. It's great for business. But on the cost side, we've got drunken sprees, teenage pregnancies, and serious adverse impacts on sustainable health. So while that trade volume is great for the national output, she notes that the completely unmanaged fallout creates massive struggles for development practitioners. They're the ones left to clean up the mess long after the red and pink decorations come down.
To make this incredibly tangible, she points to a very specific metric: a 10 naira per liter sugar tax. She cites the Nigerian government's hint at a domestic revenue drive that taxes sweetened beverages. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter for Valentine's Day? Well, because the excessive, completely unregulated consumption of sugary items that are pushed so hard during these trade cycles is fundamentally adverse to sustainable health. It leads directly to risks like diabetes. It perfectly illustrates her point, right? The trade cycles of the season might be super fleeting, but the rippling effects of the buying decisions we make, they have enduring consequences that governments literally have to implement taxes to manage.
Let's wrap up with Section 5, Sustainable True Love.
So after mapping out all the irrationality, the steep costs, and the literal taxes, she moves into this incredibly inspiring conclusion. She completely redefines romance through a macroeconomic and environmental framework. Ola David defines true love as, get this, thinking in the language, literature, and culture of sustainability while considering longer-term payoffs for current decisions. I mean, isn't that just a totally fascinating way to look at relationships? She's arguing that true love actually thinks through underlying motives before acting. She beautifully compares it to clean air. It's always present, even when it's invisible. And its ultimate goal is long-term sustainability, not just some fleeting adrenaline burst on February 14th. And to give us a real roadmap for this, she presents a final call to action built around the 5 Ps of sustainable development. Whether you choose to passionately celebrate the holiday or you calmly decide to just opt out entirely, she urges all of us to keep these in mind. Love people, keep the peace, share the prosperity, protect the planet, and build partnerships that actually matter. These 5 Ps represent a sustainable, grounded approach to love that outlasts any peak shopping season.
Which leaves us with this final, truly provocative thought. How will you ensure your definition of true love aligns with long-term sustainability? Are your seasonal decisions creating unwanted costs? Or are you building partnerships and prosperity that actually last? I highly encourage you to take Ola David's profound insights and apply them to your own life choices. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will catch you next time.